Welcome to the Wise Idea Weekly Podcast with Christopher J. Harris, focusing on life, leadership, family, marriage, and the church. We are providing tools for our inspiration and wisdom for life. Our goal is to inspire everyday people to live wise lives. If you're new to us, we release a brand new podcast weekly on Thursdays. Thank you for tuning in for this week's episode. Here's our host, Christopher J. Harris.
Hello, my friends. Welcome again to another episode. I am so excited to have all of you guys on. And let me just pause for a moment and say that you all rock, like for real. I'm so honored that you guys are sending emails. You all are engaging and interacting, and you're listening to the content. You're actually sending questions and engaging with us. And even several of our guests that we've had on previous episodes are telling us that they are getting contacted because they were on the Wise Idea podcast. And so y'all, I just got to tell you, it is so inspiring. It is so humbling. It is like, it lights my fire. Yeah, it lights my fire. And I'm very, very thankful for each of you that join in with us every single week. For those of you that may be new to the podcast, welcome to the party. Very glad to have you. You've already heard about our social media connections and what our purpose is, but I just want to tell you as the host of this show that I am personally passionate about life, leadership, family, and marriage and the church. And because of that, that is the focus of most of our conversations, if not all of our conversations. And our goal is pretty straightforward. We want to inspire everyday people to live wise lives. Well, as you know, for those of you that have been on with us for the last several weeks, and for those of you that are new, as I said, welcome. You're going to find out really fast what our focus is today. All month long, we have been talking about how social media has changed our lives. How social media has changed our lives. You got to go back and look at some of the previous episodes that have come out, because I'm telling you, we've talked about all kinds of things. One of our previous guests even worked for the NSA with our federal government and didn't know the magnitude of what he'd be doing once he was interviewing. But once he got on the inside, it was almost like one of those situations you see in movies. But you got to go watch the episode, listen to the episode, and catch up on that. Today, y'all, I've got another game changer in the social media space on the podcast with me. And man, this guy is busy. He's got a lot going on. And I actually found out about him by going through YouTube and seeing his YouTube channel. You guys are going to have to check that out at some point. I know he'll talk about it in just a moment. But everybody, let's welcome to the Wise Idea podcast, Alejandro Reyes. What's up, Alejandro?
What's up, man? So excited to be here on the Wise Idea podcast, Christopher. Super pumped. And man, I'm fired up. A lot of times I'm, on interviews, or I just got to say, you're one of the most fired up people. There's like a fire in your belly, man, to share your ideas about how people can level up in leadership and family and marriage and business. So, man, such an honor to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you, man. Your track record speaks for itself. Your influence is very, very large, and I don't take it lightly or take it for granted that you're hanging out with us for a little while today. So real fast, just introduce yourself to everybody, man. Tell everybody what you got your hands on and what you're dealing with and what your passions are.
Yeah, great question, man. Again, thanks. Honor to be here. So in 1999, I read this book by Bill Gates. It's either The Road to Success or The Path to Success. Said half of every dollar is going to be spent online by 2010. And so for some reason, I mean, it's almost 20 years now, and it's still ingrained in the back of my mind. And so I just knew that in 1999, 98, I had to learn how to make money and grow business on the internet. I knew that's where things were headed. And so I started learning about it. And, I went to college for 2 weeks. I studied basketball, English, and Spanish, and I dropped out. And that's usually the story I'll tell in the business world. I dropped out of college, went into business. But as I went into business, the real reason I actually dropped out of college was because I went to Bible school. I actually wanted to be a preacher. I wanted to preach. I wanted to speak. I wanted to show people that there's a better way. I grew up in a pretty broken home, dysfunctional, toe up from the flow up. And I just wanted to let other people in those situations know that there's a level of hope. And so for me, I'm very passionate about the lost. I'm very passionate about people that don't have it all together. And so as I was going to Bible school, as I went into ministry, pretty much full-time ministry, no pay, I actually started making money on the internet in the early 2000s. Not a lot, Christopher, not a lot, but it was enough to, I just got bit by this bug of like, I can actually make $1 on the internet. That's insane. And so I was able to pay rent and all that good stuff as a result of the internet back in the day. And fast forward, I met my wife, and we got married in 2005. And I actually decided to dive deeply into the business world. And the funny thing about it, man, is ministry was like my passion, and I loved it. But I went into business, and I felt like the marketplace was kind of my pulpit. And so fast forward again, about a year ago, we started an agency, and a few friends of mine, there's about 4 of us, with several vendors that we work with. And man, we're passionate about helping influencers, leaders, authors, churches 10x their impact. And I believe, man, that you can 10x your impact with the internet these days. Income comes, money comes, that'll happen. Growth comes, all these other byproducts happen. But if you can genuinely have an impact, like the kind of impact that you're having here with this podcast, like if you worry about that, you're going to be fine, because opportunity will come on the back. And I always just trust God that if I'm going to deposit these ideas, these seeds of impact and focus on that, he always takes care of me on the back end. So I do my job on the front end, then he takes care of the back end. So so we run an agency. We have a YouTube channel, as you discussed, about 35,000 subscribers. It's not massive. Someone say, well, there's other people with like millions. That's fine, but we have a very specific niche. One, we're family, and 2, we're Hispanic, we're Mexican. And so we've niched that. And a lot of big brands, Christopher, want to reach out to our audiences. So we've worked with Chase, we've worked with Target, we've worked with Disney, we worked with Dove, we worked with some really big brands, Kohl's, and we've traveled all over the country doing commercials with these brands as a result of kind of, wanting to share their audience. They want us to share their audience with them. So those are kind of things that I've been a part of. And man, I'm really passionate about the local church. I serve at my local church and had the opportunity, after almost 15 years of not preaching in a church. 2 weeks ago, I had the opportunity to speak in a church, bro. So I'm doing a lot and having a lot of fun, man.
Man, I think I'm just tired hearing everything you got your hands into. Like, and so really fast, tell us about your family. I mean, I know you got I have at least have seen your daughter on the YouTube channel, but tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we moved, after 7 years of marriage in 2012. We moved to Seattle for my wife to go to nursing school, and sold my agency. I had an agency in California, and we have 2 little daughters, and we moved everything. I sold like in a matter of 3 weeks, total God thing. And then when my wife graduated, we moved to Eastern Washington, and we're actually closer to my wife's hometown. So my wife comes from this massive, amazing, her dad's one of 11. So Christmas is like, man, you got like 80 people there. It's insane. Bunch of big old Mexican family, all love the Lord, worship God, and they all play in worship and all that stuff. And then, so that's kind of the family dynamics, me, the wifey, and our 2 daughters, Sadie and Bella, who are 8 and 10. And, you mentioned earlier, like, there's a lot that I have my hands in. However, I actually only work from like 9 o'clock to 3:30. I'm done after 3:30. Yes, I'll read stuff and I'll catch up stuff, when my wife's at work and kids are in bed. But actually, I have my hands in some things, but I feel like I'm efficient. I built the right team so that I don't have to work 68 hours a week like I was used to.
Man, that's incredible. That's absolutely amazing. And I have a huge appreciation for some of the things that you shared. Now, I'm an executive pastor at a multi-ethnic church, and so we have a pretty large contingency of Hispanic folks here. And so I've been thrown into the deep end on the language and the food. Man, it's incredible, man. The rice and beans, brother, rice and beans.
Bro, the food, man, it's no joke, man. It's the best. It's the best.
I tell you, it's not helping my weight loss plan, though. I'll tell you that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so let's jump into it, man. So your passion obviously is internet, intranet, social media, all of that. And you referenced the book that you read back in 99 2000, and it's funny because when you said that, my mind immediately went back to how much hysteria we had going into 2000 as it relates to technology. Like, oh my God, are our computers going to blow up, or are they going to crash or not work, and all of that. And so obviously you have seen a lot of migration and transition with technology and with social media. Right off the top of your head, Alejandro, what would you say have been the major ways that social media has literally changed our lives?
Yeah. So before you say that, like the hysteria around Y2K, I'm assuming you're talking about, right? Like, here's the thing: Mexicans didn't know nothing about that. We didn't have hysteria. We weren't worried about that, man. Like we didn't worry about that, man. To Hispanics, like it's all about family, and you talk about social, believe it, in Latin American countries, Hispanics, Latinos have more. Some people, like in Central America and South America, have like 2 or 3 phones. And so they've adopted it in a major way. And it's interesting how it's kind of impacting culture here in the States. But this is one of the biggest communication shifts. Never before in the history of mankind have we been able to communicate and connect with so many people so quickly. And so, the days are kind of gone of kind of waiting, like in business or church, waiting for people to come to you. I mean, you could put $20,000 in Yellow Pages and put it out there, plaster your logo, all that over that, and sit back and hopefully people show up on a Sunday. Now in Ezekiel, it actually talks about he sat where they sat. And so it's fascinating that we actually kind of model the life of Jesus and go in the trenches, connect with people, add value to people, and hopefully based on that value that people will eventually come back and want to learn more about what you have to offer. So it's very special. My biggest passion is I believe everyone or every organization has some sort of message that if they reach enough people, it can impact and change their world, right? So you as an entrepreneur that's maybe listening to this, I believe that you actually have a God-given talent. Proverbs 18:16 says, a man's gift makes room for him and brings him before great men. And so the gift inside you that God has actually given you, if you nurture that, if you put reps in that, you actually have a gift inside you, a message inside you that I believe that if you start to share that over time, you could actually get paid to do what you love. Same thing with the church. There's a gifting, there's an anointing that a church may have that if they share it with enough people, they can start to literally impact their city. And so I believe, what social media's allowed us to do is the average person, whether you're a 25,000 member church or a 15 to 100 member church, or you're an entrepreneur that doesn't have VC money, that doesn't come from a rich family like me, like I didn't come from, but I have the opportunity to tap into my message, my gifting, my anointing, the favor and all that stuff. And I have a shot to actually compete against bigger brands or bigger churches. And so that's why I get really excited about it, because average folks, ordinary folks can do extraordinary things. You know what I'm saying? You got me fired up a little bit,
Man, I hear it. I'm almost afraid to ask you, what denomination you'd be a part of, man, because I think you'd go into any church and light that sucker on fire. You hear me?
Yeah, I mean, we grew up, my wife, my grandmother actually got saved. She was there and she was part of youth ministry of Dr. Philip Godot of Calvary Christian Center out in Sacramento, California. In the 90s, it was the most diverse church and one of the fastest growing multicultural groups, churches in America at the time. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Calvary Christian Center in Sacramento, but still an amazing church. Jason Caston, who knows of this church in Sacramento, amazing church. And my grandmother, it's a very Pentecostal charismatic church. So I didn't grow up in it. My grandma was a part of that. And I kind of learned about that. She'd be praying, when we lived with her for a couple years, praying at night. I'm like, what is my grandmother saying? And she's like, that's the heavenly language. And so we ended up going into when I was 18, our family started going to church, and we went to a Hispanic, it was almost borderline legalistic, but again, Pentecostal. And so that's my background, man. Charismatic. Like, it's hard to find it's hard to find Hispanics that are not passionate about Jesus. Like a lot of times they come from like, they're immigrants. So they understand they've migrated here. And so they understand the pain of leaving family back in Mexico. And so it's very hard to find a non-charismatic Hispanic who's actually saved and loves Jesus. I just like, show me one. And I don't think there is one, but we're just passionate, bro. We want to do something special. We're just this salsa, man. We got fire in our bones, brother.
Man, I love that, man. I could talk to you all day talking like that, brother. I mean, just like, listen, like, man, I'm over here about to scream. I'm trying to be a good host by not interrupting you, man. But you got me fired up over here. That's for sure. So
awesome.
when you talk about, and I love what you said earlier, because you're doing what I believe is in the heart of many people, and that is that this notion of faith does not have to be restricted to the experience that we encounter Sundays for 2 or 3 hours, right? That it literally needs to be integrated into every aspect and component of our life. And so when you talked earlier about leveling the playing field, that's really what you alluded to in terms of what social media does. If somebody is listening to this, Alejandro, where do they start? What's the beginning point for them? And how do they not get so overwhelmed with everything that's out there?
Yeah, I think you really have to understand that you don't need to be everywhere. You kind of need to figure out, I have this, when I worked in corporate, when I talk to clients, like, trying to serve their customers, I'm always thinking audience first. Who is your audience? And you really got to figure out, like, what is it that we do? What's the product? What is the product that we're producing on Sunday? What sliver or flavor of church are we charismatic? Are we reformed? Are we Baptist? Are we seeker sensitive? Like, and you have to understand that's okay to like talk in like, those type of terms. And you got to figure out what your product is, or what your message is, or what your book title is, or whatever it is. There's an actual audience that will be best served. It's almost like your perfect client. And so you've got to figure out, what is it that I do? What's the identity? What does it feel like? What does it look like? Who are the couple people that this product will serve? And so for me, I'm always thinking of those two things. What's kind of my mission? I got to keep refining that. What's the mission of this product? What does it solve? What is this service? What's the consulting that I do? And then you got to figure out what's the perfect audience. And actually, whether it's a church or whether it's an organization that's trying to sell something or whatever, we come up with names of their personas, of the people, the avatars that they're trying to, so maybe it's like a church that, it's a young family church. And so the two audiences that we're trying to target is business dude Bob. And business dude Bob has 2 kids, and he's 28 to 44, and he likes Michael Jackson. And you can actually target those people on Facebook with those different types of interests. And then his wife is soccer mom Sally, and she has 2 kids. And what happens is, I think the greatest marketers in the world, and we're all marketers, we're all trying to convey some sort of message or communication. I think the smartest marketers in the world, the wisest marketers in the world, they really, when they speak and they write and they communicate, they're talking to one person. And what ends up happening is you end up really, as you do that, you start to have people self-identify if they are part of your tribe or not. So even before you jump on social media, you got to be super clear about who you are, your identity, your brand, what you do. Because what happens is you get on there and you start seeing all these people like Tony Robbins or Gary Vaynerchuk or Casey Neistat and all these other people, and you start comparing, and you're like, oh my, I gotta be that, I gotta do that. Oh man, he's killing it in that market, so I gotta do it this way. And so that's the biggest trap, I think, and the biggest mistake I see a lot of entrepreneurs and churches do, is they try to do what other people are doing and not really staying true to the DNA. Like, I remember in the 2000s, like David Young Cho, biggest church in the world, Seoul, South Korea, And he had this book about called cell groups or something of that nature. So every church in America was like, oh my gosh, we got to do cell groups because Seoul, Korea must be just like the United States. And so we should actually start a cell group too. And it's just these trends and cycles that come and go, and people stick with the trends. But if you remain constant and kind of not like wheat and just kind of like the wind will blow you over, and stay true to what your brand is, and identity and who that is, I really believe that you actually have a shot starting there. And then you have to figure out, like, where your audience is at most. Are they on Facebook? Are they on Twitter? Are they on Snapchat? Are they on YouTube? Are they on Twitch? Where are they at online? And then you come up with your strategy to try to go after them. But you really have to know who you are and who you serve first.
And I think that's incredible. But I mean, even as you talk about this, Alejandro, let's kind of deal with one of the elephants in the room when we talk about social media. Sometimes it gets over. Well, I'm going to say it this way from my seat. I feel like sometimes it gets overwhelming because, like you just mentioned, Twitch. I mean, it seems like there's a platform that comes up and rises and falls as fast as it shows up, and you'll see people that go in this direction, to jump on this platform or whatever it may be, and then it just disappears. It's like out of nowhere. Just a few months ago, there was this platform called Vero. I'm sure you're familiar with it, and for
didn't touch it.
Like 2 or 3
didn't
weeks.
Touch it.
Really? Tell me why. Why didn't you touch it?
Because I know who I am, I know who I serve, and I'll let everyone else break it first. Like, the only platform that I got on really early, the only platform was Twitter. I got on Twitter in 2007. It started in 2006, and people started getting on like 2010, 2011. That's when people really started to adopt it. But there's these early adopters, and cool. If you want to be an early adopter, cool, that's great. But I don't have time. I just want to get on what's actually working. And so another one I was on was MySpace that came and went. MySpace was kind of my lesson. Like, do I want to get on this platform because it may come and go? Like Vine, I was on it. I didn't spend a ton of time on it. It came and it went. So what are the platforms that are going to stand the test of time? And we actually already have those platforms. Facebook, it owns Instagram. Google owns YouTube, so big backing, right? Twitter, massive company. So we have some big platforms. If you're on business, LinkedIn's big. So people can keep coming up with the new ones. It's the bright, shiny object. It's sexy. It's new. So I'm going to be one of those big influencers if I go there first. That's just a recipe for disaster. So I'm trying to figure out what are the ones that are actually have some sort of track record and history of sticking around for the long run. So everyone's like, oh my gosh, I saw my whole Facebook feed. I'm like, oh man. And you could tell the type of people it just attracted the people that I know, like jump from thing to thing. And so I was like, I'm not messing with it, man.
You know what I say every single week? Thank you for joining us. We'll see you the next time. But most importantly, live wisely.
Thanks again for joining us on another episode of the Wise Idea Podcast with Christopher J. Harris. We hope you enjoyed our time together. If you did and would like additional resources and information, you can find the previous episodes, show notes, featured guest information, and more at www.thewiseideapodcast.com. We also invite you to join the conversation on social media. The Wise Idea Podcast is on Twitter and Facebook. Find us at The Wise Idea and at our Facebook group, The Wise Idea Podcast. On Instagram, find us at The Wise Idea Podcast. Our host is also on social media. You can find him regularly on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Pinterest, all located at CJ Harris 1. Finally, if you enjoyed what you've heard, head over to iTunes and or Google Play and leave a rating and review for other listeners to find us. Our podcast is also on Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Thanks again for joining us. We will see you the next time. Live wisely.